What's up, YouTube? This is Boxingwave. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, that like button, all that good stuff. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Boxingwave10. So, this is a video I meant to do a couple weeks back after Canelo won against Smith, maybe like the week after. I never got around to it. I know I did make a poll talking about pound for pound and who should be #1. Because ESPN, even after Canelo beat Callum Smith, ESPN kept Crawford as their #1 pound for pound fight. Now, if you guys are new here, I've expressed on many occasions on why I don't do pound for pound videos. And I kind of give you, an idea who I think is #1. And I've always said, for a while now, I've said Canelo. On paper, Canelo is pound for pound #1, mainly because I think the mix of his resume, his accomplishments, winning titles, different divisions, and overall his skill set. I think if you just put them all together, I think overall he's #1. If you're not including Manny Pacquiao, who's the only active fighter that has accomplished more than Canelo Alvarez. But I don't think Manny Pacquiao is the best fighter in the world right now. I think he's one of the best still, but I don't even think he's the best currently at welterweight, okay? Now, he didn't fight the very best. He didn't fight Bud. He didn't fight Spence. But I just have Canelo personally. I have him at #1 right now, right? And I've had him there for a little while now. Now, I don't do pound for pound lists because I would have to keep updating them based on, just off different weekends and I just don't want to keep up with it. And at the end of the day, I'm always going to be biased. And I think anyone that does a pound for pound list is biased, including not just solely fans, but including networks, promoters, magazines, stuff like that. Anything boxing related, there's going to be some sort of bias there. Okay. No matter what. Because everybody's going to view things differently, especially when we're talking about who's the more talented fighter. It's a totally subjective debate and argument, And when it comes to ESPN, of course ESPN is going to be biased. And I'm not saying Bud doesn't deserve to be #1 because he's definitely in the discussion. He's in the discussion as the top. Most people would have him, if not #1, they'll have him at #2 or maybe 3. Okay, ESPN has #1. I seen that the Ring magazine has him at #3, behind Canelo and Inoue. All right, but ESPN has a working relationship with Top Rank. They broadcast Top Rank related boxing specifically. Okay, Top Rank. So, of course, they're going to back their fighter. All right? And they've done that with other fighters. They've done that with Lomachenko as well. Not saying Lomachenko wasn't #1 at the time when he was. But what I'm saying is they're going to ride with their fighter. They're going to ride with their fighter. Same thing with HBO. They was calling Chocolatito #1. They was calling Lomachenko up there. They was calling Bud up there. They was calling Triple G, Kovalev. These are the guys that were in their pound for pound top 5. They're going to ride with their fighter. Ring magazine, owned by Golden Boy or owned by Oscar De La Hoya. He's running the show. He's going to put Canelo at #1. He's going to put his fighters like Ryan Garcia now in the top lightweight discussion off beating Luke Campbell. Those are the things that's going to happen. If the PBC had a pound for pound list on their website, what do you think it would look like? They're going to have Errol up there. Okay. They're going to have Jamel Charlo. And I'm not saying these guys are not deserving of it. I might not agree with it, but you guys get the picture of where I'm going with this. There's always going to be a bias, and it trickles down all the way to the YouTubers. People like me, fans that make YouTube videos discussing, giving analysis on this, breakdowns of this. It's going to trickle all the way down. Anyone that does a pound for pound list is going to have listen, you can make arguments all you want. At the end of the day, It's no way to fact check a pound for pound list. There's no way, because you know what? None of these fighters can actually fight each other. That's the reason why it's there. Now, different people have different ways to construct the list. It's cool. You may feel some are better than others, but at the end of the day, it's still a biased, somewhat biased list. You know, because everybody has a different way that they do the list. Some may be respected more than others, but at the end of the day, there's no way to make the perfect list. Now, what I like to say often is a fighter is pound for pound. Not like number one, but I mean, he's a pound for pound caliber fighter. That's not ranking them. That's just trying to give you an understanding on how I feel about their skill set and their accomplishments. You know? So I might say things like this guy is a pound for pound level fighter. I don't know where I have him on the list, but I'm just letting you know he's in the realm and he's in the discussion of that. But what's happening now with pound for pound is that people are using it as a standard for everything. And whenever their precious fighter is not in the right place or position in the order that they want them, people are going crazy. And what they're doing is slandering the fighters themselves because of where they're placed on a pound for pound list, which is wrong. I have a problem with that because that's out of the fighter's control. You don't slander one of the best fighters in the world because he's not placed where you want him to be. That's a problem. And I think especially like YouTubers have to be more responsible when it comes to that. So I made a voting poll the other week about Canelo and Terrence Crawford because of ESPN's ranking. They did not move Bud out that #1 spot. And the majority of people picked Canelo, which is fair. I think Canelo's #1 too. All right? Now, I might personally think like Bud is my favorite active fighter, right? And I love Canelo, but Bud is my #1 favorite to watch. He's my favorite. He's my favorite. All right. Now, I don't think he's pound for pound #1. Logically, no. When I see him fight, I think he's the best fighter in the world. But I just don't think he has a resume like Canelo. Now, for the people that think it's ridiculous to even put Bud in the pound for pound list, you guys are forgetting that we can all just say, well, Spence can beat everybody that Bud faced. Or Canelo can beat everybody that Bud faced. But you got to understand, Bud started as a lightweight. Okay? He fought who he fought there at the time when he was there. Then when he went to 140, that's when he really got to shine because he got to fight all the champions at 140. The current champions at 140. So after 140, he did his work at 140. He became undisputed. He went up to 147 and he collected a title. And now he's been trying to unify, but he's on the wrong side of the street. So it's become a little bit of an issue for him. But you got to understand, it's just been over 2 years since he's moved up to welterweight. He's not a career welterweight like a Spence. Okay, so he's not going to have the accomplishments as a welterweight as Spence does because Spence has fought there his entire career. Even though Bud was a pro longer, Spence is a career welterweight. That's like Spence going up to 154 and people saying, nah, Jamel, Spence ain't fight nobody at 154. Jamel Charlo got a way better resume than him. But most of you will rate Spence above Jamel Charlo. Am I right? You would rate Spence. I don't know why. If you do, that's fine. But if he were suddenly moved up to 154, it's another new chapter in his career. But he hasn't accomplished anything at 154 yet. Jamel has. And so on and so forth. If Jamel moves up to 160, it'll be the same thing with him. But one thing that Bud has done is won titles in 3 divisions, and he became undisputed. And you guys are watering down that because you don't prefer the fighters he faced at 140. But when he was at 140, he fought the best of his division that was there at the time. He's not in control of that. That's like you guys are saying that like the Slander guys like Inoue or Usyk, just because you're not familiar with those fighters, just because you don't improve with them, doesn't mean that they're bad. Just because Sean Porter is not fighting at 118, it doesn't mean that these guys that he's fighting at 118 aren't any good. You know, or Bud, who he fought at 135 and 140, doesn't mean that any... No, you go to a division and you conquer a division, that's a big deal. Or if you win the World Boxing Super Series and some of the best fighters like Usyk was in the division, that's a big deal. Because no one, how many fighters out there, especially that has some kind of star power, how many of them are really willing to join a tournament knowing that they may possibly have to face... Yeah, sorry, I gotta fix this, but yeah, who's willing, how many fighters out there are willing to join a tournament setting knowing that they may have to face one of the most dangerous fighters in that division? You know, you might have no choice. And that's the thing. Most fighters, a lot of fighters in ways they kind of do cherry pick. They don't run through a list of the top fighters in any division in order. Most of them don't do it. You know, every champion don't win a title and go straight to the next best guy and then the next best guy after that. Most of them don't. So if you are to become undisputed, it should be respected. For some reason, because Bud did it, it's not really respected that way. And I think it's because it's not that it's not respected. It's because of who people claim he's better than. Or it's because of these pound for pound lists that people feel like, oh, he's rated over my favorite fighter. So it's time to slander him. And that's not right, because he's not in control of that. You know? And again, like, for the people that think Bud is #1, I understand why. Because he did become pound for pound and he did win titles in a division, I mean, in separate divisions, you know, and he's always made it look easy. And that's the reason why I respect him so much, because any fighter he's faced that has a common opponent with another good fighter or a top fighter, he's always made it look easier, you know? But now no one wants to give him credit for some of the wins that he got, like Postal and Gamboa, or, you know, like, or even Jeff Horn. I don't know what happened, but if we just go back to before that fight happened, most people believe that Pacquiao won the fight. And I agree with that. But I also remember seeing that fight and seeing Pacquiao struggling against this guy. It wasn't an easy fight like we thought it would be going into that fight. Pacquiao did struggle in that fight. But when Bud faced him, he dominated Horn. He beat him every round and stopped him. And this guy went up to middleweight. They were saying Bud was too small. Well, he beat a guy that went up to middleweight, you know? And then, you know, the same thing with Postal. Didn't struggle at all against Postal. One of the few fighters he didn't stop. But at the same time, we seen Postal in there with other fighters. We seen him in there with Matisse. Stopped him. Before Pacquiao even fought him. But he was still relevant. We seen him stop Matisse. We seen him give Josh Taylor all the trouble in the world. We seen him recently, an older version of him, have a debatable fight with Jose Ramirez. When Bud beat him years ago. When he was undefeated. But people don't care about that stuff. It's like, who cares anymore? And then he beats and stops all the welterweights. We heard that he was too small, but he stopped every welterweight he's been in a ring with. When Danny was at 140, because everyone speaks so highly of Danny because he's with the PBC. But when he was at 140, Postal was the mandatory for like 3 different fights. Go check that out. Go look it up. Danny was supposed to fight him since the Herrera fight. And never fought him. Never fought him. And he wasn't an easy fight back then. I can see Postal giving Danny some trouble. We seen Herrera give him trouble. We seen Peterson give him trouble. You know? But Bud gets in there and makes it look easy, and people want to say that he's a nobody. He's a bum. It's just, it's sad. It's sad. The slander on the fighters is really is sad. You know, especially when, if certain people are on record to claiming that certain fighters are great and achieve so much, but there's other fighters out there that achieve much more, but they are getting slandered by that same fan. You know? I have guys that's been subscribed to the channel a long time. I'm familiar with a lot of the names because you read the comments, you see the same names, so I know who's here. But I got a sharp memory, and I can remember some of you guys leaving comments. I remember what some of the comments you said. I'll be like, I reply to some of you guys sometimes, like, hey, didn't you say this on this video? I remember. I'm not even talking about just YouTubers. I'm talking about boxing fans in general. So this pound for pound thing, we have to be very careful with that. I think I don't think they should just completely do away with it. It would never be done away with. But I also understand that there's a lot of politics involved in it. And I told you before, I mean, you guys heard it from me so many times. It's a marketing tool. It's a marketing tool. So you don't use it, especially some of you guys that were slandering Bud. A lot of you guys have Bud at number 2, but you're slandering him because they have him above Canelo. How do you slander a guy that you have in your top 2, top 3 pound for pound? Anybody that's in the top 5, top 10 pound for pound should not be slandered at all. At all. Like, you should not be slandering him. Anybody in a pound for pound list, or anyone that's in that discussion period, even if you're not in the top 10, like, you shouldn't be slandering a fighter on that level. You just shouldn't. It's just, it's irresponsible. You shouldn't be doing it because you're giving them a bad name. And if you have a large following, people that are new to the sport are going to take your word from it because they see that you have a following. So if you have a following, it's your job to be responsible if you actually care about the sport, which many people don't. A lot of people don't really care about the sport. They care about certain fighters. They care about certain networks. They care about the extra check they might be getting on the side. They care about that stuff. They lack integrity. Pound for pound is just a discussion of who we think is the most talented. If we're removing the weight classes out of the picture, who's the most talented? And it's no real way to fact check any of that because there's none of these guys are going to fight the same type of fighter, or the same fighter because they're in the different divisions. But it's supposed to be used to gauge where we see these guys overall as far as talent, And I don't know, it's turning into a whole thing where it's just like this pound for pound thing is people is getting obsessed with it. It was never supposed to be that, And even if you're going strictly off accomplishments, right? Even if you are going off it, still, even with that, if you win titles in so many different, and I say this about Adrian Broner all the time. Adrian Broner got titles of 4 different divisions. But the best fighters he's fought, he lost to. Even smaller guys on certain occasions, like a Mikey Garcia. So If you win divisions, you win titles in different divisions, you skip around. And that's the one thing about Canelo. As much as I think Canelo's a great fighter, Canelo, some of his accomplishments was a little bit questionable because of, you know, the judges, the rules, stuff that was agreed upon, catch weight, stuff like that. And you could say that with Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. You could say this about everybody. But when you're a cash cow, you can have certain things in your favor. Rehydration clauses, judges, scoring the close rounds, putting them, giving you the nod for those fights. So those rounds. So you can say a lot of that with Canelo. And I think that if people don't have Canelo at number one, if they don't, it's usually for those reasons. I don't even, what's crazy? People bring up the tainted meat. I never bring it up. When's the last time you heard me talk about the tainted meat? I never really talked about it on here. I mean, you know why I'm not saying that he wasn't cheating. I mean, he's been cleared. First of all, he's been cleared, so I don't talk about it. But another reason why I don't talk about it, because even fighters that did tested dirty at any point in their career, at some point, like, all right, there's a lot of fighters that I love that has been connected to some sort of PED use. And I'm not going to, I'm not going to shit on them for the rest of their career because of it, unless it becomes a habit. Like Gerald Miller it's like his whole reputation is based on it. He ruined a big fight. He ruined a big fight. And then he went and tested dirty again. And he had previously tested dirty while he was an MMA fighter. So it's like, all right, now it's just, you got you fail with three different drugs at once. That's a little too much. But there's fighters that I like, that I respect, that Dillian White, Shane Mosley, Alexander Povetkin. I respect these guys. When they pop dirty, yeah, I slander them, but I'm not going to, for the rest of their career, I'm just going to keep talking about it. But people bring up Canelo. They bring up the tainted meat. They bring up the judges. They bring up the rehydration clauses. They bring up the scoring. They bring up a whole lot of stuff that makes it not really like, we can't give him number one because he's picky and choosy with who he faces. So if that's their argument, okay, I'm all ears for that. Because in some of those things, I do agree with. I still have him as number one because I still think he's fought the best fighters to me. But at the same time, I judge it based on what's on paper. This is his resume. This is who he fought. That's what I'm rolling with. I think those fighters are better than the fighters that Crawford faced. But Crawford is only facing who's available. Now, if Crawford started ducking and dodging, making poor excuses on why he shouldn't fight certain fighters, then I would have to drop him some. But I don't really see that with him. Has he made the best decisions in his career? No, I don't think so. But I don't really have much to say bad about the dude. Or anybody else on that matter. That's in that discussion of pound for pound. I don't really have much to say about Inoue. I don't really have much slander to give for Errol Spence or Usyk or whoever else you guys got up there. You got Triple G, you got Estrada. Certain things that, there's certain people that I wish they faced. Like, I wish Triple G would fight Andre. I wish Canelo fought Andre both at 154, 160. That's another criticism I have of Canelo. And I know he can fight whoever he wants. And I know Kovalev and some of these other fighters, Callum Smith, are good fighters. But at the same time, he was at 160. I wish he had tried to push for Undisputed when he was at 154 or when he was at 160. That's fair. I shouldn't get slandered for saying that. When he was at 154, why didn't you try to push for Undisputed then? When he was at 160, why didn't you go for it then? You beat Triple G. You had 3 of the belts at one time. Why didn't you push for it then? You had 168. You pushing for it now. It sounds good. It's good. And I hope you do it. That'd be a great thing. That'll be something that neither Pacquiao or Mayweather had. And those are things that I wish they both did. And I criticize the both of them for not pushing to go towards Undisputed. You can win titles in every single division. But if there's 4 titles in each division and you just pick up one within each division, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a good accomplishment, but there's 3 other guys there. So, you know, it's like, it's good, but you can still, if you dominate a division, I still think that's bigger than winning from multiple divisions. All right? And I just gave you those reasons. All right? Anyway, listen, overall, man, the pound for pound thing is a great topic, but let's just keep it as a debate. Let's not get disrespectful. Let's stop slandering fighters because they're not where you think they should be on a list. If you're going to slander a fighter because they're ducking or they're cheating or, you know, anything, you duck them for the wrong that they're doing. They're not preparing. They're not focused. They're missing weight. You know what I'm saying? They're ducking. They're cherry picking. That's one thing. But to slander them based off somebody else's list, you're going to slander the fighter. Bud didn't make the list. Canelo didn't make the list. Ring Magazine did. ESPN did. You know what I'm saying? Like, why? The promoter might be pushing for that. You can't slander the fighter, especially if you think he's number 2 in the world. What is wrong with you guys? Like, it's getting crazy. Anyway, I'm out. Peace.